Welcome back to Cinema Flicks and Music Picks. I'm Davey, your host with most, the beast with the least. Least we can do today, another box set Wednesday. I've become quite bad going down to one video a week. Apologies, the pace will pick up soon, but I've discovered a new technique for meditation and whatnot that's taken up a lot of my time. It's called sleeping. So, title tells you what I'm talking about today. No point pussyfooting around. It is Bruce Springsteen's, well, to give it its official title on the spine, which is different from the front, The Promise, The Darkness on the Edge of Town story. So, here we go. This is the box. And as you can see, it's got one of these nice spines. But we're not going to touch it yet. No, we're going to take 1 minute and just look back at the previous Bruce Springsteen boxes, just to kind of set up where that came from. It just came out in what, 2009, I want to say, something like that. Nothing on the back. Yeah, definitely 2009. You can take my word on it, even though I'm just going by memory. So 1998, we'll go all the way back to, or was this 1999? Yes, 1998. Bruce had greatest hits in 95, but he'd never had a box set of any real description apart from the live thing, which is great, but how can you do Bruce and not really do the 78 too? I don't really get that. However, in 1998 we got this baby, Tracks, which is essential, but it's a set of rarities really. There's some tickets from when I've seen Bruce. So it's a set of rarities and or B-sides, things from tribute albums, unreleased material, demos and whatnot. Look at this, Bruce Springsteen, £55 at Hampden Park. God, I think the next time after that was about 75, and the last time was about 125. Inflation, eh? So this was great, but it just wasn't quite, It was wonderful, but you felt like there was more things in the vault, which has proved to be true over the years. The Electric Nebraska and things, where was that kind of stuff hiding? So then came Born to Run's anniversary in 2005, where we got this rather slim looking by today's standards box set in the Age of Super Deluxes, which contains the album remastered as disc 3, rather oddly. Disc 1 is a concert DVD of Bruce and the E Street Band live at the Hammersmith Odeon in '75, which was also released on CD separately. And then disc 2 is the making of Born to Run, which is an hour and a half long. Absolutely fantastic. It's presented like that, and you get a lovely book, which is full of great pictures of the time and whatnot. But we're not here to review that. Although I will just say, I do like that they actually went all the way out to do a proper vinyl replica for the remaster of Born to Run, which has never been released on its own. Right down to the vinyl there. But the big problem was, and the elephant in the room was, wait a minute, where's the unreleased stuff here? Yeah, you gave us a live concert, but and by the way, to any of the Sea Tranquility watchers, the curse is real, because I've got 2 of these. Where's all the unreleased stuff? If you're going to give this a live concert, that was a great one because it was filmed and so you could put it in this and then sell the CD as well. But there's better bootlegged from that tour. So you could have really made something. And there was lots of outtakes that weren't included on this, alternate versions, etc. So things were in limbo for a little bit. Bruce talked about Tracks 2, which as of 2022 he's still talking about being the next thing along. It doesn't work too fast. And then we reached 2000, well, it must have been 2008, if it was an anniversary, but I wonder if it was delayed till 2009. And we had the anniversary of Darkness on the Edge of Town, which, remember I said the curse was real a minute ago? DVD edition, Blu-ray edition. This one has a more valid reason. At the time of buying, I didn't have a Blu-ray player because this was really early Blu-ray days, and we weren't even sure if HD DVD was going to be the winner. So I bought the DVD and then eventually bought the Blu-ray. Both out of print now. But this was more like it. So it comes in a notebook like Bruce's actual, scanned from Bruce's archives. And what you get here, stuff flying out. To start with, good. See, you always keep your J cards and you always keep your backing cards. So even if it doesn't fit on the box because it's too big now, you just tuck it away somewhere. So, disc 1 this time, they actually have made the album itself disc 1. The remaster of Darkness on the Edge of Town, which is absolutely superb. Discs 2 and 3 CDs are The Promise, which also had a standalone release. That's the archival, essentially tracks, but just focusing on this era. So unreleased stuff from this period. DVD 1, Blu-ray 1 is the making of, which is again an hour and a half, just about this one album. And then DVD 2, Blu-ray 2 is the E Street Band in 2009, so it must have been 2009, thank you. In 2009, so that's the one with, Niels Lofgren, Pat Skalfin, etc., performing the album from 78 live in its entirety in an empty theatre, the Paramount Theatre in Asbury Park. So you get the modern band doing the classic album live, but instead of just taping a gig, with 50,000 screaming fans, they did it in a completely empty theatre, which is quite mesmerising. It lets the cameras get straight in and around the band and whatnot. You can even hear parts where people are maybe tripping over wires and things. It's quite wonderful. Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band from the Thrill Hill Vault fills out that disc, which has just got loads of kind of random things that were taped from Holborn, New Jersey, Red Bank, New York City, Phoenix, in fact quite a bit from Phoenix. 24-minute recording session rehearsal, so that runs over an hour, that disc. And then disc 3 is a bootleg cut, because it's not 100% quality and it's black and white, of a full concert recorded in Houston, which I believe is in Texas, in 1978, and it's 3 hours long. It's a 3-hour 78-tour concert. 78 for Bruce is the equivalent of 66 for Dylan. It is the year for live touring, or 75 for Dylan. So what you get in this, before we go on to the actual content, then you get lyrics to the actual new tracks from The Promise. So you get a condensed version of this in the booklet, the CD booklet, but this is the kind of full version. So won't go into the whole thing because it's just lyrics. And then to look at the actual set itself, so you get Bruce's notes from 1998, which shows you how long he'd been going through the archives to make sets like this. Bruce's notes from 2010, completely disproving my 2009 theory, so I guess it came out in 2010. So Bruce's introduction from the 90s, and then one from 2010, and then it goes into just all the lyrics that he had, all those kind of amendments that he made in the borders. His handwriting's quite hard to read in places, but you can see parts where he just writes down eyes question mark, face question mark. Like he's double guessing his lyrics, maybe seeing what will come out in the Baby Sue, so he's kind of wondering about lyrics again. Roy solo question mark, so you know he's even kind of putting together arrangements there. So yeah, I mean, that's just, you know, it's just cool, and putting together the actual track listing that he had in mind. Yeah, there you go. You know, which complete with coffee stains and everything. And then when you get to the contents itself, you get, there's Darkness, there's the album itself with the classic cover, which, I don't know, it's one of those album covers that's kind of become iconic just by proxy, because you know it's a ubiquitous album. But I don't know, do you not think it looks like Bruce's The Fawns or something? Like, you know, he's very much selling I'm the working class boy from New Jersey, isn't he? And once again, they've not quite done the full vinyl version this time, but they give you the old Columbia 360 label, and they give you the insert as it was, and again on a little vinyl replica, which is nice. So I like that attention to detail. Once more, that is exclusive to the set. Then it goes back to lyrics, and then concentrates on the actual lyrics. So it goes through the lyrics for the album as close to end product as possible, with things here that wouldn't pop up until later on. There's Sherry Darling, which wouldn't be on an album till The River, although he'd made the live debut of it on the No Nukes concert, which has just been released on Blu-ray. You know, I mean, this is him really working through what he's going to put on the track list and things. So after the album itself, you kind of get another whole batch of pages where you can just read up on the thought process and what goes into making the set. And then you get to The Promise, which this is pretty much as it came out in the stores, but it's slightly different because obviously there's no, well, we call them barcodes, or the UPC codes or something in America. 2-disc, it's not quite a digipack, but just a fold out thing, where just the CDs like that, nothing fancy here. But what this is, as I said, is essentially tracks, but just focused on this period. So it's unreleased things, it's demos, it's tracks that he donated to someone else. Controversially for some, Bruce went back into the studio in 2008-9, perhaps a bit earlier, depending on how long he'd been going into the vaults, and touched up a few things. Even some of the vocals are actually modern Bruce singing, which I mean, I love Bruce's modern voice, but his 78 voice had quite a distinctive timbre that, you know, a modern Bruce just can't replicate. And I don't know. So the Lost Sessions, Darkness on the Edge of Town, you get Racing in the Street, which just blows them all out of the seats, to quote the song itself. It completely smashes the version on the album. Got to get that feeling, I'm on the outside looking in. Someday We'll Be Together is a good ballad. One Way Street, Because the Night, everybody knows, because Patti Smith was donated that by Bruce. That's one of the ones where he goes back in and records the vocal, unfortunately. In his defense, he says that some of the vocals just weren't quite up to snuff for release quality that he'd be happy with. So they might be good enough for you or I, for collectors of Bruce's music, fans of Bruce's music, but for a slightly more casual audience, because this was released as a standalone, maybe it was smart to sweeten it up a little bit, just, you know, just so people don't go, why is the vocal so low in that, you know? Maybe you can make a case either way. Rendezvous was donated to Gary U.S. Bonds, who made, well, he made 3 albums in the 80s, but 2 of them pretty much feature the entirety of the E Street Band, and Bruce and Little Steven write just about every track on them both. It's basically 2 Lost Springsteen albums, but with Gary U.S. Bonds as lead singer, which is great because they had made Quarter to Three by Gary Bond's such a live staple, which they still play to this day when they play live. On to this too. Save My Love was the kind of lead-off single from this. Not that it would have been in shops, but you know, Ain't Good Enough For You is fantastic. I think Southside Johnny's covered that over the years. Fire, the Pointer Sisters were donated that. Spanish Eyes, It's a Shame, Come On. Talk to Me was definitely a Southside Johnny track that Johnny was donated, because Johnny made a minor hit of that, but one of his enduring songs by Southside standards. And if you're a Bruce fan and haven't heard any Southside Johnny, get in there. The Little Things, Breakaway, The Promise. I mean, The Promise is a legendary track. That's one that was on bootlegs for years, and when it wasn't included on this, fans went ballistic. And that inspired Bruce to release something called 18 Tracks, which was a best of that box set, that then included 3 extra tracks you could only get on that one CD version, and that's where you could get The Promise at last. But this is a different version again, and then City of Night is where that lands to finish it off as a 2-disc set. It's wonderful, it's great stuff. As I say, there will be a little bit of displacement if you are familiar with his vocals and all of a sudden you hear the modern Bruce. You know, it's gonna make you go, that's a bit weird. But yeah, it is what it is, unfortunately. So you can either like it or lump it. So you know, there's set list that he's coming up with. So you know, here's the actual lyrics as he typed them up, because for the kind of final version, but he's still revising them, you know, still making changes towards the very end. It's great that people at Bruce have kept all this stuff, you know. I mean, at the time it would have just been for the next album and then the next one, the next one, the next one. So the fact that he was and others have been smart enough, like Neil Young, to keep absolutely everything, it's just fantastic. You know, whereas, you know, so some people chucked them away, some gave them to friends, you know, the amount of ones that have just been left in hotels and things, and, you know, or in record company desks. I mean, there's Prove It All Night was a late edition, and it was literally taped on to the jotter, we call him here. I don't know what you'd call him in America. And once again, he's still coming up with different track listings for the album, which are completely different again, because that one's still got Come On and Sherry Darling, and Iceman on it. Iceman, which had been released already, it was in this, which is brilliant. Iceman is kind of this album's equivalent, although it's not on the album, it's this era's equivalent of Meeting Across the River, you know, that slow piano, kind of creepy, almost dirge-like. I am the Iceman, fighting for the right to live. It's great stuff. And then we get the making of Darkness on the Edge of Town. So if you've never seen one of these documentaries, Bruce goes really through the weeds, sits at the mixing desk. It's like one of those classic albums docs, but a little bit more artful than that, because it doesn't just cut from talking head to talking head. It takes you back to Bruce's childhood home and shows you the places that inspired it, and you know, there are quieter moments, you know, it's quite artfully done, really. They're great documentaries, all of them are kind of a piece. A bit like the Marillion documentaries, if anybody's got the box sets of those, they very much set up an era. And then we get through, you know, there's all kinds of photographs that have been taped in as well, but we're going to go through the whole lot. And here is the Paramount Theatre Asbury Park live performance. So this is them in, I mean, you're not going to get, you can hardly see it well there, but this is them in 2009 performing the album from then. And then on the back, some pictures of the kind of various bootleggy tracks that have been picked up from the Thrill Hell vaults. So there's plenty of stuff on that disc, but then some more pictures, some Polaroids. It's really well sequenced, this as well. It doesn't just give you, well, here's some lyrics, here's some photos, here's the discs. it makes you want to flick through everything by, you know, getting to the concert posters, and you know, so, and then it'll stop for a disc, and then it'll, you know, there's a Winterland poster and everything, you know, I mean, it's, which obviously is where the last waltz was recorded, Thanksgiving night '76. And then one of the coolest things about the whole set, as I said, never been released outside of this box, is the DVD of Live in Houston. Is it Houston 78, but does it give an exact date? It doesn't, but it must have been later in the year, because the tour in '78 was towards Christmas time, so maybe November, something like that, November, December. And yeah, in fact, one of the tracks here has given me a bit of a clue as to that. I'll just rattle through this set list because this is unreal. Badlands, Streets of Fire, Hard to Be a Saint in the City from the very first album, quite rare even by that point. Darkness on the Edge of Town, Spirit in the Night, also from the first album, covered by Manfred Mann's Earth Band. Independence Day, which wouldn't show up on an album until The River. The Promised Land, Prove It All Night, Racing in the Street, Thunder Road, Jungle Land, Ties That Bind, Santa Claus Is Coming to Town, Fever. So at that point, you got the fever, girl, you got the fever, was still a Bruce song. Again, it was covered by Southside Johnny, and once more was included on the 18 tracks spin-off of that box set. Fire, which the Pointer Sisters again, Candy's Room, Because the Night, Point Blank, She's the One, Backstreets, goes straight into Rosalita, goes straight into Born to Run, Detroit Medley, 10th Avenue Freezer, You Can't Sit Down, You Can't Sit Down, and then, speaking of Gary U.S. Bonds, the last track, Jump, 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 don't you know that I dance till 2:45. I won't subject you to too much more of that, but yeah, 2:45 by Gary U.S. Bonds. So I'm quite energetic today, which is, see, that's that new meditation process I was talking about, plus a massive addiction to amphetamines. Now let's try and put this back in. In fact, I haven't put the promise, but the lyric sheet back in. To go through the album itself seems a bit pointless, you know. I mean, we all know if you're a Springsteen fan of this album, but Badlands, one of the great starters of all time to any album. Dun, 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 dun. A live staple, the crowd really get going. Whoa, whoa, you know, that can be stretched way out. Adam Raised the Cane is just aggressive as hell, you know. Springsteen's voice soars like Roy Orbison in that. Something in the Night and Candy's Room and Racing in the Street almost make up this little suite of kind of slower tracks, almost a bit of a concept about breaking out of the, I mean, this sounds kind of general to Springsteen, but specifically this part about breaking out of your small, you know, your little apartment or your house, and picking up your best gal, to quote Captain America, and then doing what the hell you want, which in this case is racing in the streets, which tells a little story there almost. And then side 2 track starts with The Promised Land, which, Mr. I ain't a boy, no, I'm a man, with Max going, you know, on the bass drum, which is absolutely stunning. Factory's fantastic, so that slows it down a little bit for the second side. And then my sleeper hit from this, Streets of Fire. Bruce sings that like it's the last thing you'll ever get to sing. I need to take a second just to think about Streets of Fire. Yeah, it's just sensational. It's got a wonderful guitar solo. Bruce played a lot of the leads on this, which is quite unusual for one of his albums. And Prove It All Night, dun, 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 dun. You know, that is one of the best kind of dark love songs that you hear. And then that closer again, Bruce sings it with all his might, but it's got a lovely up to it, you know, build up, you know, with Gary's bass, yeah. Tell her if she wants to see me, and then it kind of builds into the chorus. Tell her that I'm easily found. So yeah, I mean, if you don't like Bruce Springsteen, first of all, this probably wasn't a video for you to watch for 25 minutes. But if you don't like Bruce, this is the Bruceiest of Bruce albums, because this is his I'm a working class boy from working class stock trying to make good album, writ large. You know, everything that people think of when they think of Bruce Springsteen is in this. The elements that would be added to it for The River, for Born in the USA, etc., they're already here. They would just be elaborated on. And then things like Nebraska, you know, quieter ideas, they would be taken almost from things like Candy's Room and whatnot. You know, the idea of slowing it down, which you'd never really done before. You know, it always kind of just punch, energy, which the live shows still kind of stayed that way. But and speaking of the live shows, Houston is a great example of it, but one of the best bootlegs you'll ever find in your life. And you can get it semi-officially because it was broadcast on radio, so the EU allow you to sell it. Is from Passaic, 78, I think that was December, and Bruce sings the best I've ever heard him singing, and he plays all the guitar leads. Little Steven plays rhythm mostly, so they kind of switch places, and you get these massive long introductions for the only tour that Bruce has ever done this on. So when you go to see Bruce, you tend to get, you know, as many tracks packed in here, you know, all those tracks that I read out. But there's a reason why the concert's 3 hours long, because Thingy, for example, the where was it? What was the one I was thinking of? Prove It All Night has got like a 4-minute introduction where it will have Roy on the keyboards, and he'll be just playing the melody, and then Bruce will just play like one power chord, and then he'll just come in and just slice with another, and then he'll take a step back. You know, it's like teasing, it's like edging, to use a rather sexual term. And then when it really comes in and the rhythm starts to pick up, the tightest rhythm section ever with Mighty Max Weinberg on the drums, when things really kick off, he wails on that guitar, and when he opens his voice, geez Louise, the stuff that's coming out, it's just I say it to the blind, I tell you, I say it to the blind. I think I need to go and listen to Darkness and some bootlegs now. So sorry, I've been to quote Mr. Zevon, who also had a track from Bruce, Jeannie Needs a Shooter. To quote Warren Zevon, I'm just an excitable boy. Although we won't go into all that stuff today. And then if you're good boys and girls, then one day we will be together. We'll go into the follow-up box set, The River, The Ties That Bind, The River collection. And hopefully, which is even more comprehensive, believe it or not, but hopefully in not too long we'll have an equivalent box set for Nebraska, finally, with the Electric Nebraska sessions. Come on, Bruce. And then Born in the USA will be the big one, sales wise, you'd imagine. These Super Deluxe box sets, I mean, as I said, I didn't even have a Blu-ray player when I bought this first one, and I think this was probably the first Super Deluxe, if we kind of called it that, box set that I had at the time. Everything else was like 2 CDs, 1 DVD, that kind of thing, or the Legacy editions. You know, this was kind of or just kind of standard box sets. You know, nothing, you know, just CDs in it. This was the first time I had the real concept of like, well, they can come with like all sorts of memorabilia and posters and, you know, 6 discs and blah blah blah. Yeah. Again, almost exactly the half-hour mark. I don't know how I managed to do it. Doesn't matter if I'm talking about the complete Encyclopedia Britannica or that bit of dust over there. We almost hit the half-hour mark exactly every single time. It's a talent and a curse. The curse is real, folks. Yes, thank you for your attention. Have a pleasant week. Maybe we'll try and upload something at the weekend just randomly if I can be bothered. But I've been working a lot more seriously in the cupboard to try and get more shelving up. It now goes way up to the ceiling, which by God is high. Because we're on the top floor here. So yeah, it's pretty epic. So yeah. Oof. Well, have a nice week. Away and have yourself a cup of tea. Listen to Darkness on the Edge of Town if you haven't done so in a while. Listen to The Promise if you've never done so, because it's a great kind of rarities and outtakes thing. And then listen to tracks if you haven't done so in a while as well. If I listen to everything Springsteen's ever done. Everything. Absolutely everything. Whew. Okay. I think I am a little bit excitable now. Time to calm down. I've been Davey. This has been Cinema Flicks and Music Picks. Today was, of course, a music pick, but next week, who knows? Who knows? I don't know. Would you expect me to prepare for these things? Off you go. I'm away as well. Love and mercy to you, my friends. Do me one favour before you go, though. Just be careful out there. Be very careful out there. Love and mercy again. Just 'cause it's you. Take care.